For thousands of years, standing silently on the edge of the Egyptian desert, the Great Pyramids have remained one of the most powerful and mysterious structures ever created by human civilization. Even today, in an age of satellites, advanced engineering, and modern technology, no one can fully explain how these massive stone monuments were built with such unbelievable precision more than 4,000 years ago. No machines, no cranes, no modern construction tools as we know them today, and yet these structures still stand perfectly aligned, perfectly balanced, and mathematically flawless. The Great Pyramid of Giza in particular continues to confuse scientists and historians. It is built from more than 2 million limestone blocks, some weighing several tons each. These stones were not simply placed randomly, they were cut with extreme precision and positioned in a way that even modern engineering projects struggle to replicate. When researchers analyze the structure closely, they discover something even more shocking. The alignment of the pyramid is almost perfectly matched with the 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, with an accuracy that feels impossible for an ancient civilization. Ancient Egypt believed deeply in life after death. Pharaohs were not seen as ordinary kings but as divine rulers, chosen by the gods themselves. In this belief system, death was not an end but a transition into another world. The pyramids were constructed as sacred gateways for the pharaohs to travel safely into the afterlife. Every passage, chamber, and corridor inside the pyramid was designed with spiritual meaning and astronomical connection. But what makes this even more mysterious is the fact that there are no complete records explaining how the pyramids were actually built. There are no surviving blueprints, no engineering manuals, and no detailed construction logs. Everything that exists today is based on theories, assumptions, and partial evidence. Some historians believe that thousands of workers used simple tools, ramps, and organized labor over many decades to build these structures. According to this theory, it was not advanced technology but extreme discipline, planning, and human effort that made the pyramids possible. However, other theories suggest something far more mysterious. Some researchers believe that the ancient Egyptians may have had access to lost knowledge or advanced techniques that have disappeared from history. There are even theories that suggest unknown methods of stone cutting and transportation that modern science still cannot fully explain. The precision of the stones, the scale of construction, and the alignment with astronomical patterns continue to fuel debate among archaeologists and engineers around the world. As scientists continue to study the pyramids using modern technology like laser scanning, satellite imaging, and 3D modeling, they keep discovering new details that make the mystery even deeper. Hidden chambers, unknown tunnels, and unusual internal structures suggest that we may still not fully understand what lies inside these ancient monuments. And this raises one final question, perhaps the most important one of all: are the pyramids simply tombs built by human hands, or are they something far more complex, a message from an ancient civilization that we are still trying to decode? To understand the true mystery of the pyramids, we must first understand the people who built them. Ancient Egyptians believed that their pharaohs were not ordinary rulers. A pharaoh was considered a living connection between humans and the gods, responsible for maintaining order in the world and protecting Egypt from chaos. Because of this belief, the death of a pharaoh was not treated as an ending, it was treated as a transformation. Egyptians believed that after death, the ruler's soul would continue its journey into another realm and eventually unite with the gods. This belief changed everything about how they designed their monuments. The pyramids were created not simply as giant structures but as carefully planned sacred machines for eternity. Every chamber, passageway, and angle inside these monuments had meaning. The internal design was intended to guide the pharaoh's spiritual journey after death. Ancient priests performed rituals, prepared sacred objects, and filled burial chambers with items believed to be necessary in the next life. But this is where another mystery begins. For a long time, people believed pyramids were simply tombs. However, when researchers started exploring deeper, they discovered something unexpected. Many pyramids contain surprisingly few treasures compared to what would be expected for rulers of such enormous power. Some chambers appeared unfinished. Some tunnels led nowhere. Other passages seemed intentionally sealed. This created new questions. Were all pyramids truly used for burials? Or did they serve another hidden purpose? Inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, hidden spaces continue to surprise scientists. Modern scanning technologies have revealed unknown empty chambers behind thick stone walls. Some areas appear too large to be accidental. Others seem placed with deliberate geometric precision. What makes this even stranger is that some of these hidden spaces show no clear signs of use. No decoration. No inscriptions. No obvious purpose. And yet they exist. Researchers continue debating whether these chambers were construction spaces, structural designs, hidden ceremonial rooms, or something else entirely. Ancient Egyptians also placed enormous importance on the stars. Their temples and monuments often followed astronomical alignments. Some theories suggest the internal passages of the pyramids were designed to align with specific stars associated with rebirth and eternal life. According to these ideas, the pyramid may have represented a symbolic pathway from Earth to the heavens. Whether these theories are correct remains uncertain. But one thing is clear. The more technology advances, the more questions appear. Because instead of solving the mystery of the pyramids, modern discoveries seem to make them even more mysterious. Thousands of years later, these silent stone giants continue guarding secrets that no one has fully unlocked. And perhaps, some secrets were never meant to be found. Among all the questions surrounding the pyramids of Egypt, one remains more controversial than any other: how were these enormous structures actually built? At first, the answer may seem simple. Ancient workers cut stones, transported them, stacked them, and eventually completed the pyramids. But when researchers examine the details, the problem becomes far more difficult than it appears. The Great Pyramid alone contains more than 2 million stone blocks. Many of these stones weigh several tons, and some internal granite blocks weigh far more. These materials were not all taken from the same location. Certain stones came from distant areas, meaning they had to be transported across land and water before being placed with extraordinary accuracy. The traditional explanation suggests that workers used ramps. According to this theory, builders created giant mud brick or limestone ramps and slowly pulled stone blocks upward using ropes and wooden sledges. Teams of workers coordinated movement while engineers carefully positioned every layer. At first, this sounds reasonable. But problems begin to appear. If ramps were large enough to reach the highest sections of the pyramid, they would themselves require enormous amounts of material and labor. In some estimates, the ramp could become almost as large as the pyramid itself. And strangely, very little direct evidence of these giant ramps remains. This opened the door to alternative theories. Some researchers proposed spiral ramps wrapping around the pyramid. Others suggested internal hidden ramps built inside the structure itself. Then another mystery appeared. The precision of the stone cutting. When modern engineers study certain joints between stones, they find surfaces fitted so tightly that even thin objects struggle to pass between them. Some blocks appear shaped with remarkable smoothness and consistency. Ancient Egyptians certainly had tools made from stone and copper. But critics ask, could those tools alone really produce this level of precision across millions of blocks? Experimental archaeologists have shown that ancient methods can cut stone, but recreating the exact scale and speed remains difficult. Another surprising discovery involves worker villages found near the pyramids. For many years, people imagined slaves building the pyramids under brutal conditions. But evidence suggests something different. Archaeologists discovered organized communities with food supplies, medical care, and planned housing. This suggests skilled labor forces rather than endless forced labor. Builders may have been respected workers serving the kingdom. Their organization, discipline, and planning could explain part of the achievement. Yet questions remain. How were heavy stones lifted into higher sections? How were measurements kept so accurate? How were millions of blocks coordinated over decades? Some engineers argue that ancient civilizations may have understood practical techniques that later disappeared from history. Not magic. Not impossible technology. But knowledge that was lost over thousands of years. And perhaps that is the most surprising possibility of all. Because maybe the pyramids are not proof of something beyond humanity. Maybe they are proof that ancient humans were capable of far more than we usually imagine. And if that is true, what other knowledge has history already forgotten? For centuries, explorers believed that the pyramids had already revealed everything they had to offer. Their outer structures had been measured, internal passages mapped, and chambers documented. Many assumed there was nothing left to discover. But modern technology changed that assumption. As scientists began using advanced non-invasive scanning methods to study the Great Pyramid, unexpected results started appearing. Instead of confirming that the interior was fully understood, the scans suggested that hidden spaces might still exist inside the structure. This discovery shocked researchers around the world. Because the Great Pyramid is not a small monument, it is one of the most carefully constructed buildings in human history. Finding unknown spaces inside such a famous structure raised a difficult question. How could hidden areas remain undiscovered for thousands of years? Using particle imaging and structural analysis, researchers identified large empty spaces located beyond known chambers. These areas appeared unusual, not because empty spaces are impossible inside large buildings, but because of their position, size, and unexplained geometry. At first, some researchers suggested these were simply construction gaps or spaces created to reduce structural pressure. But others were not fully convinced. Some argued that the placement seemed too deliberate, too symmetrical, too controlled. And that idea led to new theories. Could there be hidden ceremonial rooms? Unknown burial chambers? Secret storage areas? Or spaces connected to rituals we still do not understand? Inside the pyramids, certain passages become increasingly narrow and difficult to access. Some appear unfinished. Others end abruptly without explanation. In several places, sealed stone doors were discovered with no obvious way to open them. One of the strangest details involves narrow shafts extending from internal chambers. For many years, people assumed these were simply ventilation channels. But later studies suggested another possibility. Some researchers proposed that these shafts may have had symbolic or astronomical meaning rather than practical use. Ancient Egyptians carefully observed the movement of stars and associated specific constellations with divine transformation and eternal existence. If these shafts were intentionally aligned towards certain celestial points, then their purpose may have been spiritual rather than functional. Another mystery involves the silence inside certain chambers. Visitors often describe unusual acoustic effects, echoes, vibrations, and strange resonance created by the architecture. Scientists generally explain these effects through geometry and sound behavior. Yet some researchers continue studying whether chamber design intentionally influenced sound experiences during rituals. Then there is perhaps the most fascinating question of all. If hidden spaces still exist, what else remains undiscovered? Because every new scan seems to reveal another layer of complexity. And what makes this story powerful is not that the pyramids are impossible to explain. It is that they continue resisting simple explanations. Thousands of years have passed. Empires have risen and disappeared. Entire civilizations have changed. After centuries of research, discoveries, debates, and technological advances, humanity still returns to the same question. What were the pyramids really built for? At first glance, the answer seems obvious. They were tombs. That explanation has remained the most widely accepted historical understanding for generations. Ancient Egyptians believed in life after death, and pharaohs invested enormous resources into preparing for eternity. But the deeper researchers look, the more complicated the story becomes. Because the pyramids do not behave like ordinary tombs. Unlike many royal burial sites discovered later in Egyptian history, the Great Pyramid contains surprisingly little decoration inside. There are no massive painted walls telling long stories. There are no rooms overflowing with treasures. Compared to what many people expect from royal tombs, the interior feels strangely restrained. This created an important question. Was the Great Pyramid designed primarily as a burial structure? Or was burial only one part of a much larger purpose? Some historians argue that the answer may be symbolic. According to this interpretation, the pyramid itself represented order rising from chaos. Ancient Egyptian creation beliefs described the world emerging from a sacred mound. The pyramid shape may have reflected this idea, a giant stone representation of creation, stability, and eternal existence. Others suggest that the structure functioned as a political message. Imagine living thousands of years ago and seeing a monument larger than anything ever built before. The message would be impossible to ignore. Power. Control. Divine authority. The pyramids may have demonstrated that the pharaoh was more than human. That he ruled with the support of the gods. There are also theories connecting the pyramids with astronomy. Ancient Egyptians carefully observed cycles in the sky. Certain stars became associated with eternity and rebirth. Some researchers believe the entire architectural layout may reflect sacred relationships between Earth and the heavens. Not because the pyramids generated mysterious energy, but because they symbolized cosmic order. And perhaps that idea is even more powerful. Because it suggests the builders were not trying to create a machine. They were trying to create meaning. Then there is another possibility. Maybe modern people sometimes underestimate ancient civilizations. When we see something extraordinary, we assume impossible explanations. But history repeatedly shows that human beings, when organized, determined, and driven by belief, can achieve incredible things. Perhaps the pyramids are not evidence of hidden powers. Perhaps they are evidence of human ambition at its absolute limit. Still, even with all our modern tools, many questions remain unanswered. Some internal spaces remain unexplained. Some construction details continue to spark debate. Some alignments still surprise engineers. And maybe that is exactly why the pyramids continue capturing human imagination. Not because they are impossible, but because they remind us that history still contains mysteries. Thousands of years ago, people stood beneath these same monuments and looked upward in wonder. Today, we do exactly the same. And maybe one day, someone will finally uncover the answer hidden inside these ancient stones. Until then, the pyramids remain one of humanity's greatest secrets.